Mike, welcome to Mint. Thank you for being on. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Adam.
I'm excited to have you a part of season 5. I think a great place to start. This is where I start with everyone. Is a quick intro. Okay, who the hell are you? But more specifically, how did you get your start into crypto?
Yeah, so Mike Giudice, have been in crypto full time since 2018, and actually purchased my first crypto in 2013, and was passively interested. Uh, Purchased for the first time because I was working at Braintree, and we were thinking about adding Bitcoin payments to Uber and Airbnb in 2013, and I was just interested in global, low fee, censorship resistant, always on payments. Bitcoin obviously proved to be volatile and doesn't work for that. Stable coins actually can serve that purpose now, but that got me interested. And then entered full time in 2018. Saw what was happening with Ethereum and smart contracts and ICOs, and got really excited about the potential for applications that and networks that included money, in terms of and tokens to help basically incentivize people to do things, to help with governance, to help with coordination, and started as a somebody founded a company called The Block to educate folks on news research about the space, and then spent some time, sold The Block last year, spent some time at Paxos running their stablecoin business, and now I'm a full-time investor.
Nice. So it seems as if like you're quite the entrepreneur yourself from starting all these like crypto companies for the most part. Yet the day-to-day of your life seems like you manage a fund and you're betting on other entrepreneurs. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned while being an entrepreneur that you look for while betting on other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is just you don't have to have like significant, uh, I wouldn't say like domain expertise. I like to say like a lot of the places that we're investing in, really early stage, so pre-seed and seed and Web3 or your crypto infrastructure and applications. You're investing in a place where there are no experts. At the same time, I want to find people who I believe are like deeply authentic, where when they have a conversation with me, like it's grounded in a passion, and there's a reason for doing what they're doing. I really like to dig in. I'm as much a people investor as I am like an idea investor. So I like to really understand the authenticity of where somebody's coming from and why they're like trying to solve a particular problem. And then I want them to be realistic about like not only the technical components of what they're building typically, but like, hey, what's the go to market, and how why are people going to care about this? So those are just like the things that I look for. I'm not too hung up on the potential for folks to pivot. As I mentioned, like the idea could change, but I just want like a sensible hypothesis.
Got it. I know some of the biggest valuations came out of the bull market, and people were raising money on some of the craziest ideas, whether they're credible founders in Web3, non credible, whatever it may be. What are some of the biggest mistakes you witnessed entrepreneurs make during this recent bull market?
Yeah, so I mean, there's so in crypto specifically, one of the biggest errors that folks could make, and I have my own project called Linkstyle that I started with some folks where we raised money by selling NFTs, and that money was denominated in ETH. We immediately converted to stablecoin. So one thing, treasury management is just a critical problem that a number of projects have run into, where they kept their treasuries in their own native tokens and/or ETH or SOL, and therefore they have 75% or more discounted from the nominal dollar value that they thought they raised. That would be one. Two would be aggressive hiring. By the way, it's not just a startup problem. You saw
Hmm.
Coinbase overhire significantly based on projecting what happened in Q3 and Q4 of 2021 far into the future. I think a lot of you've seen some correction. You're going to continue to see more. And then, I mean, look, we all got caught up in it. It's not just the startups. Like the belief that we were in, super cycle was kind of a joke, and then that, like, now it's a joke. But I do think a lot of people believe that we were reaching longer cycles, and we were going to
Hmm.
stay, and that we were still so small. And there's such a. I mean, by the way, this is the case, but I think a lot of us, including myself, in some cases, And in some of the things I invest in and did, and products that I like, the products I purchased myself, thought that we would reach a broader audience more quickly. Projected maybe what's going to happen by 2030
Mm.
into 2023 or 2022.
So what's your investment thesis actually at Six Man Ventures? What does it
Yeah,
entail?
so we're basically investing in applications and infrastructure. Uh, the term is like Web3, but we truly believe that applications and infrastructure that makes it basically easier to utilize crypto and crypto-enabled products. Okay. We think that cryptocurrency, that tokens, as I mentioned, tokens for governance, for incentives, for payment, for coordination, can actually add significant value to applications, can help to bootstrap networks. You've seen this with Helium, you've seen this with Arweave, you've seen this with some play to earn gaming,
Hmm.
although the jury's still out on what models will be sustainable there. So we're like very, very bullish on the notion of I didn't even mention ownership, but the idea that you can basically have ownership of the networks that you participate in, a piece of the network that you participate in. So we believe that's powerful for both business and consumer use cases. Additionally, we believe that money and value that's separate from any, call it centralized authority, a government, a bank, a business, is powerful as well. So we're investing in businesses and projects and protocols that are creating that future, where again they're networks that are owned, governed, incentivized, and fueled, sort of by their own token economies.
Yeah. Is there anything on that investment thesis or your overall belief in Web3 that you'd say like others may not agree with that you guys are just like extremely bullish on?
I mean, I think it's popular. I mean, it's pretty contrarian to to still think even today. If you tune into Twitter or the news or anywhere, I think we're at a low in terms of people's. We're in that trough of disillusionment where you're going to hear cryptocurrencies outside of perhaps like Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum, or maybe even they'll be included. There's a lot of comments about these being vapor and not having value, and you hear a lot of projects pointed to and tossed about as being Ponzi's. So I think it's like kind of contrarian right now. I see a new blog post every day from people who I know are investing in tokens regularly, that like tokens are an innovation, that crypto enabled networks are an innovation. We still believe that deeply, and I've like seen it at work. So we're investing like aggressively against
Hmm.
that. We are invested in a number of like play to earn games that will launch later this year. We're invested in a number of Web3 enabled networks that and sort of DAO structures where they'll be launching more publicly later this year. So yeah, we continue to deploy into areas that I would say are publicly unpopular, but we remain bullish. And the good thing about that is because they're unpopular right now, valuations are more reasonable than they were, as you mentioned earlier, sort of at the bullish peak early
Right.
this year, late last year.
Right. So I could assume that building the block, which is one of the more reputable media outlets in crypto, you've learned a lot around the business of traditional media, because inherently it feels like a traditional media business covering the Web3 landscape. But I'm curious, while building out that business, you probably also discovered a lot of like traditional holes in media that maybe Web3 can solve. Do any come to mind?
Sure. I mean, the biggest is that it's really difficult to, and you learn this, to, as you're covering stories that have multiple, protagonists and, multiple takes, to actually ascertain like what the truth is. And so, any news story or journalistic piece that's presented is going to, have the perspective deeply entwined of the person, who's writing it. And you're never going to make anywhere near 100% of people who are the subjects of the story or reading it or impacted by it happy. So it's difficult. It's a really difficult, to some extent, not like it's a no win industry and ecosystem. It's very, very easy to criticize even really high quality journalism, and it's really difficult in today's hot, quick take environment to defend journalism that has integrity against really loud voices who you cover, whether that be a cryptocurrency exchange leader, an influencer, or somebody who has a pulpit to accuse the news of being false.
Right. So on that note, how do you kind of think about NFTs as a medium for media distribution? I think a good example is like tokenizing art and the collectability of art and the distribution of art, right, as a form of
Got it.
media
So
to get
media as a
better.
platform. Yeah.
Right, right. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. So one thing, like to date, like last year at least, over the last 12 to 15 months, people showed a higher willingness to pay for to your point, media in the form of NFTs. Whether that be art, whether that be music, not really video or other things, and even written stuff. Like I know there's been there's Mirror and some other NFT enabled publishing platforms. Ultimately, we've talked about, like, I think play to earn gaming, where you have NFTs and tokens, the core of the game and the core of what you own. I think that's going to be the largest, initial manifestation of NFTs and quote unquote media. But the, I think it's, NFTs in their current form, where they're like, primarily like static
Right.
JPEGs or GIFs, like, or GIFs. I don't want to be a boomer and call them GIFs, but like, it's just kind of like, I don't think we've really explored the space where we're really changing the media landscape. I think there are other experiments that are happening with media that I'm not sold on. Things like decentralized studios, where you sell NFTs and then that community can sort of like vote on what the story or the IP or the creative output will be. I'm not sure that's going to work. I'm not super bullish on it, but like I like to see folks experiment with those sorts of things. So I guess NFTs as it applies to like traditional media, I haven't thought a lot about.
Mm,
NFTs as it applies to the things where they are working with respect to media, is they're helping to create communities where people sort of identify with this new form of media they've bought, like the NFT, the picture, the JPEG, the identity that they have. And then that community coalesces around to some extent the art, but really it's about like the value of the thing, and hey, we're part of this thing together, and we self-identify. I mean, these aren't novel concepts, but they've been really, really powerful in terms of getting people excited. I do think the money aspect of the stuff, the speculative aspect, is what has driven a lot of like the behavior and interest in NFT enabled art to date. And so to go beyond that to things like more interesting, we're going to have to give more properties to the NFTs that matter. Things like, as I mentioned, governance or input into creative direction,
right.
token gated token gated access and things like that. But we haven't really seen those experiments materialize other than as like proof of concepts today.
What's up, guys? Adam Levy here. Sorry for the quick pause, but I wanted to recognize a couple of our NFT sponsors who are helping make this episode a reality. They are Coinvise and Mint Songs. First up, on Coinvise, you can create a personal or community-owned social token on Ethereum. Coinvise also helps you create incentives through token rewards and bounties, NFT business models, and bot integrations for Discord. Discover more by visiting coinvise.co today. Next up, we've got Mint Songs, a community-curated marketplace for one-of-one music NFTs minted on Ethereum. Mint Songs connects music lovers and collectors with artists that want to build unique one-to-one relationships with their fans through music. To join as an artist, you will need to be invited by an existing artist or an existing collector within the Mint Songs community. Check out the artists pioneering the future of Web3 music today by visiting mintsongs.com. All right, back to the episode. Are there any other experiments that you're kind of like eyeballing that have maybe not hit the main stage just yet around NFTs? Anything come to mind?
So
I guess, and just to add more context, I'm trying to understand what the next wave of NFTs look like. I feel like 10K PFPs have had their era for the most part, right? And then trying to understand how can this primitive be
Yeah,
used in
like the
other
stuff
means.
that we're interested in, like that we're investing in, like it's not even the next thing. I think it's just people will recognize that there's enduring value to utility-based NFTs, right? Like I have a project Linkstyle where the NFT that you purchase gives you, the ability to purchase a membership in the club, the ability to vote on the club's rules, where the club will be, a bunch of other things, and then access to perks and benefits. So that's one. There are like utility-based NFTs. Like we invested in a company called POAP, Proof of Attendance, that becomes like almost like your passport of things you've done and
Hmm.
places that you. So I think that's interesting. And then what that enables is, okay, you have that POAP in your in your wallet. Okay, that means you qualify for XYZ in the future. I think that's interesting. I think earning NFTs for doing uh, you know different tasks. So, hey, you were a developer, you participated in this governance vote, or you built this particular thing and
Right.
contributed code. Here's an NFT as proof of what you've done. Those are interesting, next steps. But candidly, like I'm looking for people who can imagine things, more exciting and wilder than that. If I had all the good ideas, I probably would be, incubating more businesses versus investing in other people.
So part of one of these businesses is Linkstyle. I guess for those who don't know what it is, can you give a quick intro?
Yeah, so it's a basically community governed and community created golf and leisure club. So we sold uh, 9,090 NFTs uh, January 1st and 2nd of this year. And the holders of those NFTs basically have rights to make decisions about what the golf course and club and rules that their participants in and future members of will be. So the beauty of this quote unquote Web3 golf and leisure club is, one, we were able to sell FTs, which gave us funding to actually go out and make this reality, right? Bring a community together, host events, put infrastructure together to connect all of us,
Hmm.
and hire a team to go out and execute and scout out and find a course and launch it. And then the NFT allows us to do like token gating and access to benefits of being a part of this community. So that includes like significant discounts, access to certain events, and things of that nature. So it's like a Web 2.5 type thing. To use a term that's probably overused, but it's a pragmatic use of the existing technology for fundraising and for community and governance primarily. And it's been really, really fun. And the people stick around, whereas in a lot of these projects, you see them rise and fall in like 2 months. We have a really active community, 6 months on, and they're really excited for when we buy this course later this year and then launch it next year.
So how the hell did you manage to raise $10 million in 24 hours from 9,000 memberships?
Yeah.
How?
So
And I remember that day explicitly because it was all over Twitter. People were losing their mind, and the rate at which this community grew was insane. It's
yeah,
unlike I've ever seen before. Maybe the next biggest thing was Constitution DAO, like next to
it's
that,
wild.
right?
So I think the thing that you learn there, and it ties to the cryptocurrency markets as we've seen, is a community like that's very momentum driven. And so we got a lot of momentum. Like you start with an audacious but achievable goal. Like we're gonna buy or build one of the top 100 golf courses in the world, and and then you rally folks around it and you move fast. So we went from that initial statement to the actual NFT sale in 17 days. And while we did that, we basically put together, including me, a very credible team of 5 or so core folks, and then had a number of folks who were actively involved and excited. It happened over the holidays when folks had a lot of time.
Mm,
And so they could talk and look at stuff, and that was part of the magic was doing it at the end of a long holiday break. And we were fortunate enough, that it was at a point in time when NFTs were extremely, extremely hyped, and at that sort of crescendo. So the timing couldn't have been better. And
yeah.
so that's been great. And then we sustained it with media coverage, and now we're in like the like any momentum driven enterprise, we're in the okay, now things settle back to like a normal cadence of actually delivering, step by step. So we have, weekly community town halls, weekly updates on progress against, course acquisition, other operational things. And, that cadence is fun. And then we do, every 4 to 6 weeks, an announcement like our recent one with Callaway, where they're, a really big partner of ours and they're the largest brand in golf. So that's been fun. But yeah, like just the telling a compelling story with a credible team, and
Right.
capturing a moment. You've seen this happen over and over again. It's like, how did, other side, how did Bored Ape Yacht sell like $100 million worth of, digital land, having never built a, not even a gaming company? That was certainly momentum. How did, projects that suck and like walked away, like the Pixelmon one,
Right.
me 2 million. So I think like it's been weird, but a lot of things have happened on momentum. I think the folks who are participating in Linkstyle are fortunate that they, they chose to participate in one that's like high signal, unlike like a Pixelmon or some of these others where, the folks were just happy to take the money. And we've been very transparent in the sense that you can see the Gnosis safe, like whether the
Right.
funds are moving, like I haven't paid myself a dime, nor has, Jim, the CEO, because frankly, we want to use as little of the treasury on ourselves and as much on actually delivering the value prop that we promise to users. Like I have a full-time job running a
Right.
fund, as you know.
What were some of your biggest challenges with starting Linkstyle, let alone starting a tokenized community today?
Yeah, so the biggest challenges are how do you transition sort of elegantly from that initial burst of energy and momentum and the idea that we're all participating, it's chaos, but there's some order, to a scenario where you can actually execute on like operationally doing things. And it's not going to be like like during the month of January, February, we probably had 100 plus people, reaching out in the name of Linkstyle to, different partnerships, um, uh, prospective partners. And so we had to do a lot over the first 3 months of putting in place a true, infrastructure
Hmm.
for Linkstyle that had, pods, right? So your marketing pod, your partnerships pod, your events pod, developer and engineering pod, et cetera. And then, nominating folks to actually lead those so that you had some order and some process. That was probably the most difficult thing that we've had to do. The other part is just explaining the fact that the NFT holders don't actually own for us, like don't own the assets that we purchase, like the golf course. That would be an unregistered security sale. So we're raising separate funding, equity funding, to actually do that purchase. So we have that interplay between the corporate entity and the community, and just keeping that balance. And it's similar to Yuga Labs and
Got it.
Ape DAO and the Bored Ape community. You basically have the corporation, and then you have this community of holders, and really you have to make sure that you deliver value and that it's symbiotic, or else the whole thing fails.
I guess with the last few minutes that we have on the podcast, I really want to understand where your head's at for the bear market. Bear market is a time of opportunity. You find the best projects, you find the best builders, and the ones who kind of last and stick through thick and thin. What's on your radar for the bear market? What are you eyeing? What niches are you excited about to throw money at? Walk me through that.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is that you have to make an assumption about like usage of crypto and crypto enabled products,
Okay.
and when that's going to return. And I think like, our guesstimate is it's going to take some time for things to normalize. Like we probably aren't at the bottom as of, the end of Q2 2022. Particularly as you see, problems with these lending desks, and I think we don't really know how contained that stuff is. So the assumption then is that, hey, we're going to be in a bearish market for a decent period of time, most likely, and you have to adjust your expectation of like users. And that means that even a great product, it's going to take more time for it to catch on, because you're going to have a less, enthusiastic and, a smaller base of folks who are looking for like the next great, crypto application. So what we're focused on a little bit more than we were, called 3 to 4 months ago, is investing in infrastructure. So, the big problem right now is, most of the apps we use today we use on our mobile devices, like while we're walking around and doing stuff. That's pretty difficult with Web3 or crypto enabled applications. So, I'm excited, for example, about what Solana's attempting with the Solana mobile service. And we're looking at different products, whether they be new wallets, and fiat on off ramps, but other infrastructure that makes it easier to use these applications on mobile devices. And then from a application perspective, I think we're probably focused a little bit less on like really way out there. Like I talked about tokens at the beginning of the conversation. While we believe in token enabled networks, like there's only a few categories where we think like it makes sense, and we have a framework that we've developed internally around that. And so we're looking for projects like where we think it naturally makes sense, and it's not just like a user behavior where somebody's trying to drop a token, on top of like just an idea that they have. So
Right.
Anyway, yeah, we're just probably shift a little bit more to infrastructure and usability, versus maybe going way out there on the kind of like app spectrum, just knowing that it's going to take a little longer for things to develop.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up, Mike. We're gonna have to do this again soon. Before I let you go, where can we find you? Where can we learn more about everything that you're doing? Shill it away.
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter quite a bit, and it's at MDUDAS, Adam Giudice. That's the best way.
You can't miss him. You're loud as hell, and we love it. Thank you so much, man. Until next time.
Thank you, Adam.